So now that GPTs have been out for a week or two and the accounts on Twitter are going wild with how 20 GPTs will make you millions, I have not seen a lot of videos covering the factors that severely limit GPTs compared to custom applications and the usage of other tools. So I wanted to go over GPTs from a technical development perspective, both what factors I think severely limit the use of GPTs, favoring custom code implementations using Langchain or Llama Index, and where I think GPTs are immensely beneficial and will eliminate custom implementations, and what use cases I think will come out on top. So some of the major drawbacks of GPTs are simply their technical limitations. So the first one, and one of the major ones, is that there's an 8,000 character limit, or about 2,000 to 3,000 tokens for the instruction set. Now, for a model that is now 128,000 tokens, this is unreasonably short. So oftentimes when I've been developing custom applications, I utilize a rather significant instruction window. Instead of, for instance, uploading documents, you can oftentimes put simply a large part of the documentation into the instruction window. And this doesn't begin to degrade until you reach about 80,000 tokens. That is a lot more than the 2,000 to 3,000 token limit they put on instructions. Another benefit of custom code, which currently has no way to get around in the GPT setup, is the custom instructions, or instructions that you can change on the fly. So the instruction set in the GPT's model is simply fixed. You type in the text, and that is how it will function for every single user of the chat. However, in a lot of custom app and custom instructions, we can use variables such as today's date is the date. We can do things like the top examples are examples. And you can also have logic, so that if one thing or another, include another block of instructions. This, however, isn't possible with the GPTs. Further on, these chats are largely stateless. They are fixed instructions, fixed documents, and fixed actions per use case. The second limit is the document limit, which is 20 documents and or 2 million token limit. So I saw some threads on Twitter where they said you could just bundle 1,000 documents into 20 documents. That's not the case. There is a 2 million token limit as well. While in retrieval, of course, there is no limit for custom code applications. They are basically limited by the size of your database and how much you can spend for embeddings. So both of these factors, both the character instruction limit and document limit, can of course change at any time. However, the third issue with the documents is it's a bit unclear exactly how retrieval functions. So if I have 20 documents, and let's say if they are all small, the documentation does imply that this simply might all be stuffed into the context window. So it's as if they are just added to the instructions. However, we don't know exactly at what point that is done, or any specifics. Another issue is that we don't know how these documents are chunked, as it's called. So the main idea around retrieval is that you take a very large document, you split it into smaller chunks, and then when the user creates a query, a vector search essentially returns the top chunks that seem most relevant. And it is likely that that is simply what is taking place behind the scenes. So with other tools such as Langchain or Llama Index, you can go a lot more in depth on retrieval. You can both specify detail exactly how these documents are chunked, how large is each chunk which is created. You can also specify metadata, which document it came from, the page number, any dates, and really any other data, which then allows logic on the metadata for each different document. So if you imagine, say, earnings reports across multiple years, multiple quarters, and you simply do a query across all of these documents, it will return chunks from basically the top 5 chunks across all of these documents. And each one of these chunks might not tell you from the year in which it's from, or exactly which quarter it's from. And it's hard to maintain the context without simply then taking the entire document into the context. But with other retrieval methods, you can quite specifically say, I only want chunks coming from Q3 of 2022 compared to Q4 of 2022, and it will construct the search exactly in that manner, grabbing only the relevant chunks from each. There are also methods that allow you to split the chunks, find the top ones, and return essentially the text that is around that chunk. And this is the idea of parent document retrieval, which can often give you much better context. So even though a piece of that text was the most relevant, the context around that piece of text can also be quite relevant. GPTs seem useful for the simpler cases of retrieval, but for the very large collections of documents, this is still a very simple rendition of retrieval. The third issue is when it comes to actions and functions. They are limited to the sense that they need to be stateless for the user. So I can create an API specifically for myself, which is authenticated specifically for my Google Calendar. You can't create an action that isn't specifically created for each individual user, since the API keys are set beforehand. They are set for the entire GPT container, and they will not be changed going forward. So for the public GPTs, the only functions they can serve are functions that anyone can call. So you can't ever tailor this to the specific user that is using your function. However, this does, of course, open up the issue that I think everyone should be making custom GPTs with custom functions for themselves, not the public-facing GPTs. Another major issue is, of course, that there are no users. As I just mentioned, every chat is stateless. Every user is essentially an anonymous user, so you can't ever tailor the data to that user other than using the data that the user has provided. Another issue is, of course, this is only accessible to OpenAI Plus subscribers, which at the moment is not quite as prevalent as, let's say, a Netflix subscription, but that will limit the use. So people could before imagine that companies might create their own GPTs to be able to allow their customers access to this or that data. However, companies can still not expect that all of their customers will be Plus users. So this will at best be a novelty on the side. And to the extent that they want a core functionality or core customer service component, they will again be going to the custom tools. And of course, when it comes to a major drawback of GPTs, there is simply one standard interface, which is a text generation. So it is absolutely great at doing that. But if the data and if the usage of your application is better portrayed with dashboards or with graphs or with web components, even though the data in that dashboard and those components comes directly from the AI, then again, you're going into a more custom code utilization. And based on the fact that this is Plus users only and that you can't have users, the custom code applications is where you can still monetize your application, whether it's through Stripe or per use, per subscription, which is, again, a bit more unclear on the GPT side how exactly revenue splitting will function. Then, of course, as we mentioned a bit earlier, there is no way to allow the user through public GPTs to connect to their own data. This will only be done through private GPTs where the actions themselves are customized to that individual user. And we will go quite a bit more into that, since that is actually the use case I think will be by far the most prevalent. So this may sound like it's all quite negative, but it's absolutely not. The GPTs are absolutely fantastic at what they do. So the GPTs themselves are incredibly easy to build. Not only is there a chat interface to create them, but the interface to customize the instructions, to customize retrieval actions is also very clean and very quick to set up. But now everyone can largely take their most popular requests, or those requests where you previously had to dump a lot of data in and then make your queries. This replaces all of those use cases where you can make these custom GPTs for these use cases. So you can think of them like specific use case apps that you create for yourself. And it absolutely covers a huge range of simpler use cases. To contrast that, custom sites, custom bots, custom retrieval absolutely requires a lot more code. Even the low-code implementations still take quite a bit of effort to get into production. Another benefit of the GPTs is simply the interesting sort of ecosystem and the trust and the exposure that various use cases can have within the OpenAI ecosystem. But this is yet to see exactly how large this ecosystem becomes. So I do think there's a huge use case for individuals to create their own GPTs, which connect with their own functions and their own deployments, connect directly either through Zapier, connect directly to Gmail, to calendars, to create all sorts of tools where your data is always going to a known source, either to a larger company like Zapier or to simply your own functions, which you can deploy yourself and connect with your GPT. So in summary, GPTs are very useful for these shorter prompt-based tasks and for the creation of private action GPTs. So custom instructions based on your custom data and files using your own custom APIs that have access to your data. They replace the need for a lot of these very basic retrieval augmented generation applications, such as chat with your PDF or chat with a transcript, and really help OpenAI act as your personal chatbot. However, for any application that requires designating users, uses costly APIs on the back end, or needs access to the individual user's information, or needs to grant that user access to their own information, or simply the fact that you need to grant access to users who are not Plus members, then all of these reasons are why, in a lot of cases, you are still going back to custom code, whether that's through no-code, low-code solutions, or through full front-end, back-end applications. However, we're going to be concentrating over the next couple of days on creating these custom GPTs. Everyone should have the ability to create APIs that both maintain the privacy of your application and gives you access to your data within ChatGPT. So thanks. Until next time. Bye-bye.